all those bonds will crash because, who wants a 5% bond when you get a 10% bond? And the rumor is, a long shot is this, Japan may join the BRICS. A 3 times crash is coming. We're going down.
You said please, please, please. World economy on verge of collapse. Runs on banks next, savings frozen, bail-ins next. I make no money when you buy real silver. I simply want you prepared for what is coming. What exactly is coming, Robert? You said a lot of things in that tweet that aren't very good.
No, as you may have, I don't know how, I've been tracking this since I was a kid, since I was 17. 1964, President Johnson took the dollar, or put the silver dollar and made it fake silver dollars and dimes and quarters. So that's why the American coins have the copper tinge around it. It's called, fake money. But what's happening is that, so the BRICS nation are coming, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and now Saudi Arabia coming after us. What's happening is that in 2017, the BIS, Bank of International Settlements, made gold tier one asset. See, up until then, the US Treasury was tier one assets. So the whole world is filled with US treasuries and bonds. And as you and I have talked over the years, I don't like treasuries and bonds, and because they're fake. So what's going to happen is when they keep raising interest rates, those treasuries they're becoming worthless. Let's say you have a treasury at 5% or a bond at 5%, and the interest rates go to 10%. It's going to collapse the system. So like Japan, which has had quantitative easing for years and years and years and years now, is filled with US treasuries. So is China. So is the Fed. And so it just started to happen, a few months, 2017 again. There was a reverse repo. And a reverse repo was what happened just before 2008 in America. And a reverse repo is very simply this, is what happens is the Fed will give money to, let's say, a tier one bank, like let's say Bank of America. A reverse repo is this. So if a Fed gives money to Bank of America, that's called a repo. So they're backing up Bank of America. A reverse repo is Bank of America and all the tier one banks give it back to the Fed. They don't want the money. They don't want the bond. And it's not they don't want the bond. When they give the money, when the bank, let's say Bank of America, gives the money back to the Fed, that's saying we don't want to lend money anymore because it's an indictment. Andy Schectman says this. He says it's an indictment of the US economy. We're going down. Now, if that goes down and they keep raising interest rates, all those bonds will crash because, who wants a 5% bond when you get a 10% bond? And the rumor is, this is according to Andy Schectman, a long shot is this, Japan may join the BRICS, Brazil, India. And what will happen is then instead of a bailout, bailout's what happened with Lehman Brothers in 2008. And so the taxpayer gave money to Lehman Brothers. What will happen is this, there'll be a bail-in, which happened in Cyprus in 2008, is Bank of America, when they give all those treasuries back or the bonds back to the Fed, people will run on Bank of America, and Bank of America will say, so you and I go to the bank and say, we want our money back. We want our savings back. And Bank of America says, our door is shut because there's a run on the bank. But guess what? Instead of your cash or your savings, we'll give you back stock in Bank of America. That's a bail-in. Now, I hope it doesn't happen, but that's what I was writing about. So as you know, I'm a huge gold, silver nut. And I would rather have silver right now, which is the biggest bargain in world history today. It's the real estate was my generation's investment because it was debt. For your generation, it's silver, because right today in America, it's cost me $30 to buy a silver eagle. $30. This stuff is trash. This is trash here. Cash is trash. So that's a bail in, bail out. That's what happens. You have a repo and a reverse repo. So the reverse repo is the banks are giving back the money to the Fed. We don't want it.
So in this crash, you want to be owning hard assets, things that protect you, stable assets. What about cryptocurrencies? What about something like Bitcoin? You've spoken on this subject as well. How do you feel about Bitcoin relative to this crash?
I own Bitcoin, but I took Bitcoin as a technical trade. It went up to 20,000 a while ago and then dropped. When it dropped, I bought it. But right now, I don't know. Just yesterday, a crypto bank crashed. I don't even know that. Silver Bank or Silvergate crashed. So everything is coming down. I hate to be Chicken Little and bearer of bad news, but that's why on my tweet, I was begging people, especially your generation, you got to change your thinking. Get rid of that mantra, go to school, get a job, work hard. Buy stocks and bonds, save cash. 3 times, Andy Schectman, the smartest guy I know, a 3 times crash is coming. First of all paper assets, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs. Second, real estate. Third, and I've always said cash is trash. I hope I'm wrong. Well, because our debt to GDP, in 2008 wasn't that bad. But then after when it crashed, then Bernanke started printing, they call it quantitative easing. It's printing money. And so that's why in 2013, I wrote the book, Rich Dad's Prophecy, to warn people that the crash was going to get bigger. In 2013, I wrote that book, and it's going to get bigger because the debt to GDP, David, as most people know, is 130 debt to GDP. It's the biggest in world history. Our debt is through the roof, and Powell is raising interest rates, which makes that debt more expensive. I mean, you don't have to go to school to know that one.
Do you think inflation is going to persist, or do you think it's going to continue coming down?
I think it's here to stay for a while. And the reason is, it's not that they printed, trillions after COVID. But the real reason is what was the first act that Communist Joe Biden did? His first act was he cut off the Keystone XL pipeline from Canada to America. And I sell oil. I used to be an oil tanker officer for Standard Oil. I don't touch paper assets. I don't touch stocks, bonds. I wouldn't buy an Exxon stock. I wouldn't buy Standard Oil stock or Chevron, whatever they call it now. I buy the physical oil. And my oil wells are in Dakota, North Dakota, Louisiana, and Texas. And so I was selling oil. Biden comes to office. My friend Donald Trump, Trump and I have written 2 books together. He's a good friend of mine. And what happened is when Biden took office, his first act was to cut off the Keystone XL pipeline, again, running from Alberta to America. I was selling oil down that day for $30 a barrel on the spot exchange, as you know. That day went to $130 a barrel. When that happened, I knew what Biden was up to, or the communists are up to. By the way, this is one of the first books I read at school. It's called The Communist Manifesto. I read this in 1965, went to the Academy in New York. Anyway, as soon as Biden cut off the Keystone, oil went from 30 to 130 a barrel. Immediately, I knew what he was doing. They're crushing the poor and middle class. So this is the irony of it, David. Guys like me get richer. So, you sell oil from $30, also getting 130. I almost voted for Biden after that one. I said, thank you, Joe. But then I realized what he's doing. He's going to crush the poor and middle class. And that sets us up for revolution, David.
Why is there this anti-oil movement right now that's so pervasive? I understand the whole environmental argument. I get that. But to cut off oil, the lifeline of our society right now, seems a bit premature to me. Or am I wrong?
Well, just look at what happened a few weeks ago. I mean, within Biden's term. Well, first Biden cut off Afghanistan. He left American troops behind. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I flew in Vietnam twice. When he cut off, the second move he did was he took us out of Afghanistan. He left troops behind. That's criminal. What he did, I mean, every veteran should be up in arms against. I'm a United Asian, but I fought for America. My uncles fought for America. When he took us off Afghanistan, I went, holy mackerel. And that day, Saudi Arabia negotiated with Russia. Okay, so that started to happen. So he was cutting first oil, and then Saudi Arabia betrayed. So when Biden went to Saudi Arabia, they laughed at him. Because here's this guy purporting Green New Deal, Biden, and why would the Saudis like him? And so when Xi, Premier Xi from China was there, they gave Xi, the welcome like he was Saddam Hussein coming back again, or, Karl Marx coming back again. I mean, the Saudis love China because Saudi Arabia, just a couple of weeks ago, Saudi Arabia agreed that they would pay China in renminbi, not the dollar. Because, the dollar, as most people know, was 1974. When Nixon came to office, he took the dollar off the gold standard in 71. And he sent Kissinger to Saudi Arabia, and the US dollar in 74 became the petrodollar. So in 74, the dollar was no longer backed by gold, it was backed by oil.
Let's assume in the future that oil is traded in RMB or any other currency besides the US dollar. Okay, well, more of it. I'm saying let's say a bigger share of oil is being traded in non-dollar currencies. What happens to America then?
They're going to send all those dollars back to America. You see, as long as in 71, Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. 74, Kissinger put the dollar back by oil. So all of these guys hold dollars because oil-backed dollar was valuable. So now it's no longer gold, no longer is oil. What is a dollar? This is trash. And you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, it says cash is trash, savers are losers. I could see all this coming. So what's happened this year, David? This year, as we talk, those dollars are trash. And people are saying, oh, go to school, save money. You got to be nuts. You got to be really ignorant not to do. I just say buy a silver eagle, US eagle, or Canadians. Canadians have great silver coins. Buy silver because it's only about $30 an ounce right now. It's cheap. And what that's hanging behind me is, George Gammon. He always talks about the economy is hanging on this hot air balloon. And that little basket down there is us, just dangling from this balloon. And that balloon happened in, as most people know, in 2008, when Bernanke, who was awarded the Nobel Prize, can you imagine that, printed trillions of dollars to blow the economy into a bubble. And it was the everything bubble. Stocks and bonds went up, real estate went up, and he kept dropping interest rates. So the dollar became more valuable. But what happened this year, David, is that balloon's coming down. It's called what Andy Shepard calls the 3 times crash. Stocks, bonds, and mutual funds crash, real estate crashes, and cash is trash. It's going to start flowing, the US dollar, is going to start flowing back to the US because treasuries are going down.